Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes are joined by Mike Canavan from Icarus Tours. Together, they'll give their top 6 travel games, then they look back at their review of La Granja in their Dukes Double-Take, and finally, the Dukes talk with Mike about gaming vacations. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And
Mike.
Hey, welcome, Mike, to the show. How's it going?
Very good. How are you guys been?
We're doing fantastic. Well, I'm doing fantastic. I can't speak for Alex.
I'm doing fine.
I'd like to speak for Alex.
I've had a beer,
which
is always helpful. I'm just one.
So it's kind of interesting. Let me kind of set the stage here. It's a Thursday night recording. We just recorded last episode on a Sunday, which is a day later. So we've got a 4-day difference in recording. It feels weird, but we're doing that so we can be here with Mike, because Mike, you are one of our amazing Patreon patrons. You're a Duke, a full-fledged Duke. And so this is your yearly episode. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I love the show and I'm excited to be on it.
Well, we're very excited to have you. So this is episode 112, which we're calling Donkey Mountain High. I thought I could get through it. Let me try that again. Which we're calling Donkey Mountain High. See, I did it that time.
Nice. Very good.
So we named this with help from Matthew Ward, our buddy Matthew, who helps us with our social media, and he's our general sounding board. But over in our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, every week we have people contribute things to the show where they can talk about the games that we're going to be reviewing. And also there's fierce competition every week to help name the episode. And we'll give you some of our runners-up at the end of the episode. But for this episode, Donkey Mountain High makes sense because we're talking back about La Granja, which has donkey actions, which we just love.
One of the best things in the entire game.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. And then Mike runs the Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. So instead of donkey, Rocky. Or wait, instead of Rocky, donkey. There we go.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that real quick, Mike. So tell us a little bit about yourself for those out there that might not be familiar.
Sure. So I started a board game vacation about 4 years ago. We ran Teton Con in Jackson, Wyoming for 3 straight years.
So is that like when board games get tired of getting played and they have to like go to the beach,
get a massage?
Yeah, we're gonna open up a board game old person's home.
Okay, perfect.
Soon.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's perfect. And it's really a combination of a true kind of standard American vacation with a board game convention. The idea being, let's hold a real small kind of intimate convention at a place that people actually want to go to outside of the fact that there's a board game convention there, make it long enough so that people can enjoy both the destination and the board game aspect of it, and then do our best as staff to take a lot of the pressures of traveling places and setting up games out by doing that for the folks. We have kind of an interesting way that we do our lodging that we can talk about later. And so it's just that combination of kind of this new aspect where folks can travel and have a real vacation that they could, take someone that wasn't necessarily a hardcore gamer to, and everyone would enjoy themselves.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that later on in the discussion topic. But I for folks who don't know, I went on this earlier this year, not for as long as I would have liked to, but I was there, and it was pretty sweet. It was pretty sweet. So excited to talk more about that later on in the show and about kind of gaming vacations in general, because it's a cool concept. It's a cool concept because a lot of folks are used to that con experience. But when it comes to actually taking a board game themed trip, that isn't always necessarily first in mind for folks, other than maybe a convention. So very cool.
Just quick that we have moved and we're now in Breckenridge, Colorado. This will be our second year going this year. So
hence the Rocky Mountain component. There you go. All right, well, real quick, let's talk about some show business before we jump into some games. As we mentioned, Mike is here as one of our amazing Patreon patrons. If you want to help support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/Dukes of Dice. Have a lot of amazing Patreon supporters over there, and we'd love it if you'd consider that. Also, Alex, what did you do earlier today?
Earlier today, as of this recording, spoke with the Podfather, Stephen Bonacore, for an upcoming Patreon interview episode. Great conversation, a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Got in depth, talked about his favorite designer. I made him pick favorites, which was fun. Game he's been most proud of getting into. Obviously talks about some new releases, but also gets a lot into the art of publishing and what he recommends for publishers and designers. So if you're interested in the business at all, he's an interesting dude. He's a great promoter, obviously, but a fantastic guy, and had a ton of fun with him. So that's going to be posted probably next week as of this recording.
A couple days after this episode drops.
Yep.
Yeah. So you'll see it in a couple days immediately afterwards. Also, we didn't talk too much about it last week, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But our buddies over at the Draft Mechanic Podcast are running their Fantasy Board Game League, the first annual, and we're participating along with them, with Epic Gaming Night, the What'd You Play This Week podcast, and with Boards Alive. And we're in, what is this now, week 4?
Yeah, this is week 4.
Week 4, so I'm going in 3-0, you're 3-0, Matthew's 2-1.
I'm in trouble this week.
Yeah, you're playing Danielle, who's probably, the number 2 ranked?
Yeah,
probably?
by the time you hear this, I'm likely going to be 3-1.
Yeah.
By the time you hear this episode drop.
So I'm going to put a link in the show notes, because what you could do every single week is you can look at the different matchups, because you're going to get points, each team's going to get points for how highly ranked their games are, how many plays they're getting, things like that. But there's also a voting component where people can just go in and which team, head-to-head, which team they like better. And then every week that you enter, you are going to get an entry in a drawing for a $100 gift certificate to Cool Stuff Inc. So definitely go check that out. Again, the links will be in the show notes, so go check that out.
Very cool. So on to what we played. I'll kick things off. And this was a week of fortuitous shipping.
Okay.
Is the best way I can put it. Because, unbeknownst to me, I had talked with these guys about this game a while ago because it was my game of the con. Arcane Academy was my game of Dice Tower Con by a small margin over Potion Explosion.
Okay.
Or excuse me, Potion Explosion!
Excellent.
It was a slight winner in that front, mainly due to the fact that I thought it was more replayable, and I enjoyed how accessible it was.
Okay.
And this week I've gotten in already 3 plays of this. It was sent as a review copy. We should be reviewing this in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Arcane Academy. It's designed by Eric Lang and Kevin Wilson, so pretty good design pedigree on this game.
Excellent.
This is a lighter weight game for those designers, for sure. It plays in, as the box lists, up to 45 minutes, plays 2 to 4 players, and we've had a lot of fun with this one so far, Sean. We just banged out a couple of games upstairs before coming down to play this one. Basically, the what this adds that's new, you're trying to complete spells, you're trying to complete assignments. It's sort of that Magic Academy themed kind of game. Spells are one thing, they're instant one-time effects. Items tend to be longer-lasting effects that you'll have throughout the course of the game. What's cool about this, Sean, is this where you're picking up tiles and building them on your board, connecting pathways, and depending on how you use them, you'll get the tile you choose to use for a round, plus tiles it's connected to. So there's a lot of chaining, combo play, but it's very simple to learn, very simple to teach, very simple to set up, which I enjoyed. Sean, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I like that kind of combo building. There's even an aspect of engine building to it, because the more of these things that you connect, and you're limited in those connections, but the more of them that you connect with one another, the more you're able to chain multiple actions together. So I did enjoy it, and I don't want to spoil too much when we do review this in the coming weeks. But I mean, I figured I would like it. I mean, you've been telling me since you played it at Dice Tower Con that you thought this was right up my alley, and it's good. It's quick. It's light. Like you said, easy to teach. I think it's solid. I'm not necessarily crazy about some of the art design, but as far as the mechanics and gameplay, I think it's pretty good.
We'll be talking about this a lot more. Maybe not next week, but in the coming weeks for sure.
So real quick, Mike, before we talk about your recent plays, give everyone out there listening kind of an idea of what type of gamer you are. What are some of your favorite games, or if you're gonna have a night in or a night with friends or whatever, what games are you looking to play?
Right. So I do have a regular group, and it tends to be people that I've converted to the hobby because I live here in the great city of Idaho Falls, which is not a booming metropolis. So I would say kind of the games that hit me the best are kind of the hybrid Ameritrash Euro games that have been more popular over the last Scythe, Blood Rage, Cyclades. I don't mind the heavy Euros, and I certainly get into them and enjoy them. But if I'm going to sit down, I want something with a really, really strong theme. Although I do love some abstracts. I will, I think those ones I listed, Blood Rage. I'll leave my absolute favorite for the list because it's in our travel games.
Okay.
I do love hidden movement games, and I'm horribly offended, Sean, that you don't like Letters from Whitechapel, because it's probably my number 1 or number 2.
Is it really? Wow.
Only 2 players.
Okay, interesting.
It's a terrible game, in my opinion, if it's not 2 players.
Okay.
And 2 players that know it well. But like,
sure.
For example, the Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation staff, it is like our holy event when we get to play Whitechapel against each other because we're all so intent on it. So I played via Nebula, which I picked up when I was traveling over in Oregon to a great little game store in Oregon called Modern Board Shop. Every time I go to a different city, I try and stop into the shop, not only to promote the show, but just to see what's in stock in places. And I usually ask them to pick one game that I should add to my library. And his pick was Via Nebula, had Martin Wallace written on it. So I was like, okay, that's fair enough. Got it home, played it with my group. And then I listened to your review, and I think I pretty much agreed with you guys. I was kind of on it. Certainly nothing wrong with the mechanics.
Nope.
It was fun to play. It was in a good time frame. But I think at the end, when I kind of put my finger on the one thing that I did not like about it, was the scoring. And by that, I mean, no matter what action you're taking in that game, you're scoring points. You're either putting out resources, which you get points for, connecting trails, which you get points for, or building cities, which you get points for. And I won't go into the play because you guys did a great review of it. Go back a few episodes and listen to the Via Nebula review. And as we were playing, and I was being super efficient, I was like not having to open up any resources or really make many paths, and I built all my buildings very soon. I looked and realized, well, that we're still at pretty much, me and the 3 other players are all pretty much at the same score. We were at a 3-player game. And the only real reason I won is because I timed the end of the game better than they did.
Sure.
And like we were all within 1 point of each other at the end. And I just thought like, I don't know, it just struck me that they were all like, oh, I'm having to waste all these actions over here. I'm having to do this. And I was like, I just built these 5 buildings super quick, super efficiently. And yet, the fact that I used all of their resources and their paths meant I scored less points in those areas. It just seemed
so you're upset that the game
seemed wonky.
You're upset that the game didn't properly recognize your greatness.
Yes, which is usually a thing I have a problem with, in general. But no, I thought it was a great game. And I'm very glad I added it to the library because it was very easy to teach. I will remember how to play it. It was, I love games that are easy to teach to gamers. I don't think another funny story. I tried to teach it to a non-gamer because there's like one guy there who was like his 2nd or 3rd game. And I got done and he looked up at me and goes, so it's kind of like Settlers of Catan. and I didn't have a polite response. So I think I just said, yeah, sort of. No, it's nothing like Settlers of Catan.
You should have been like, no, it's more like Monopoly.
So Alex, when you said he disliked the game because it didn't recognize his greatness.
Yes.
Well, but so I think that kind of ties in with what I like to feel a lot is when a game makes me feel clever, and I never felt clever playing Via Nebula, and ultimately it was missing a spark. That's what it was. It all these kind of good things that added up, or that should have added up to something really good, and it was just missing a spark. But I think it's a great addition for Empire Board Game Library or for your gaming library. So yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, what'd you play this week?
All right, so I got a game in called Burger Up, and this is from Rule and Make Games. They actually reached out to us by email or Facebook or something, and they said, hey, we got this new game. It's just fulfilled from Kickstarter. Would you be willing to take a look at it? And I saw it, and it was basically this card game where you're building these different burgers and trying to fulfill these particular orders. And I looked at it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me give it another look, because we actually get a lot of these. We get a lot of requests to kind of look at some of these smaller games. And I usually, say thank you, but no thank you. But I actually went out and I looked at a review that Tom Bassel did. And I'm like, oh, that looks pretty good. And he was pretty enthusiastic about it, which is, pretty typical for Tom. But the gameplay looked pretty interesting, and it had kind of this cute theme. So I responded, and I said, yeah, we'll be happy to take a look at it. And so talking about a week of fortuitous shipping, it came in this week as well. And I opened it up, read the rules, and I taught it with 4 people total. And it was pretty cool. It was a pretty fun, it's a light game, and it's a little bit thinkier than you think. And you are doing just that. You are building these burgers. You have 2 different plates of burgers, and you're putting out these different ingredients. And you're drawing some new cards. You can also buy some cards from the market. So there's probably like 20, 30 different ingredients, different types of meats, different types of cheeses, different types of sauces. And what you're doing is you're playing a certain number of out each turn. And you have to, the cards are 2-sided, top half, bottom half. And the bottom is rotated and the top is rotated in the opposite direction. And so you have some choice then of which ingredient you're actually putting on. But that top ingredient that you're not actually putting on is the requirement for what the next piece has to be. So for example, if I put this card down, the bottom half is a patty, maybe it's a chicken patty, and the top half of the card is lettuce, a certain type of lettuce, it just means that the next part I have needs to be a vegetable. So it could be a tomato, it could be onion, whatever. And so there's some constraint there. And at the end of your turn, if you're able to fulfill one of the 3 orders that are up, they're looking for specific things. They want it to be a certain size or not a certain size, or they want it to have certain types of ingredients, or maybe no meats, because maybe it's a vegetarian type burger or whatever. And then you're going to get points based on how big it is. The bigger it is, the more points you're going to get. And then also you're going to get points for the card itself, because they kind of gain some points from round to round. It was, we made a mistake. We played with the expansion cards, the expansion orders thrown in without taking out the right number of ones. And so it went a little bit long, but that was my fault for not setting up the game right. You know plenty about that, Alex.
Yep. This, by the way, in the up line of games with Camel Up, the Up expansion for Lords of Vegas, and whatever the board game version of the movie Up is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something really sad and depressing, probably.
Yeah, well, just the beginning, and then it gets better.
Yeah, I'm sad the entire movie. I'm thinking nothing about that. I'm only thinking of that. So anyway, yeah, this was a solid game. I think it plays a little bit better once everyone kind of gets the feel of what they're doing, because at first you kind of forget that you have to match things. So there's some set collection, there's some matching, and I feel like this is something I'd want to play a lot at 2 players or at 3 players. 4 might have been a little bit long. This is something that Mariah would love. She would have a ton of fun with this. So I think it's a solid game. So I'm glad I took a second look at Burger Up.
Very good. We were talking about fortuitous shipping, and this was the most fortuitous of shipping for me.
This is now
and least for you.
6 fortuitous.
This is the fortuitous episode of the Dukes of Dice. I got in Tiny Epic Western the afternoon before our Dukes of Dice game night. Now, this is a game I played, actually, coincidentally enough, and perfectly enough, at Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. I played this one with Dan King, the Game Boy Geek, right ahead of his review of this, and I was raving about it out of Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. It's a beautifully done game, I think. And I played this a couple more times. Don't think any differently of it. You need to play this, Sean.
Well, I need my copy to get here.
Yeah, you haven't even gotten the shipping notification yet, right?
I have not.
All right. And then probably as of the time this drops, he may have it. Or he may not. I don't know.
I hope so.
But either way, I have it. And I played it with a couple groups. I played it once at 4 and once at 3. What I will say with Tiny Epic Western... okay, and let's go back a little bit. Tiny Epic Western is a game with... You're building buildings, you're trying to collect sets, sort of these different items, 3 different items, gets you majorities. You're also doing a lot of poker hand comparison, some dueling where you're rolling these bullet-shaped dice. Sean, you got to glance at the components of this. I think they're really, really solid.
Oh yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, great game.
Probably the best Tiny Epic production that I've seen.
It's really cool. Yeah. And it scales pretty well, but I will say it plays best at 3 from my experience, playing both at 3 and 4. This is one we may review in the near future as well, so again, don't want to get too into it other than I'm really into this game. Sean has yet to play it as of this episode, but I'm sure he will get his copy at some point within the next few weeks.
If I don't get a shipping notification by midday tomorrow, I'm supposed to email them.
Fair enough.
So come 12:30, I'm going to...
Right, after this episode is dropped.
Yes.
Great, good story.
A sternly worded email.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, that's Tiny Epic Western. Really glad it came in time because I got to share it with a bunch of folks. Rory really liked this one and was bummed. He was trying to find a way to get a few copies for the store to try and sell it and said it was maybe a little bit difficult. So Gamelin Games, if you're listening, there's a board game shop in Albuquerque that really is interested in picking up Tiny Epic Western. For good reason, this is one worth checking out if you weren't aware of it already.
Yeah, another one for Tiny Epic Western. I know a bunch of the staff got to play in that with Dan, and they loved it. So I did not, because I don't really get to play anything at Rocky Mountain.
This is true.
I get to teach 100 games and play one. Now, I played Libertalia, which you guys have also reviewed. neat little kind of pirate game where you're trying to collect the most treasure effectively. Everyone has a similar hand.
Excuse me, sir. It's booty. Use
booty,
the proper terminology.
Trying to get the booty.
Thank you.
Everyone has a similar hand of characters. You all pick one, reveal it, resolve them, and 18 turns later, the game is over. It's in 3 rounds of 6 turns each. Mechanically, fun-wise, it was a really great game. I was very impressed by many of the interactions of the cards. One of the rounds was kind of more boring than the other 2, but other than that, I thought the game was great. As long as we only got to play it at 6, and it's been sitting on my shelf for probably a year. I've just been waiting to finally get a decent sized group. I don't know if it plays any better at a lower player count, but it certainly did really well at 6. But at the same time, if you're not finding a group of 6, or if you're a group that always ends up having 5 or 6 and can't find a decent 5 or 6 player game, then it may or may not be for your group. But I was impressed. I don't think it's anything I'm going to write a letter home about, but it was a good game.
Yeah, I think it actually plays excellent at 6. 5 and 6 is really good. I don't like it at 3 that much. I remember it was kind of a lackluster experience at 3. 4 is fine.
I think you play minimum 4 this game.
Yeah. But I think,
what does it go down to?
I think it goes down to 2.
It's a solo game.
Yeah.
Where you just play a card out to the pirate boat. You win the auction every time.
I think my biggest pet peeve of the gaming industry right now is 2 to 4 player games that should just be 3 to 4 player games.
Yeah.
I understand that, and in fact, I'd rather see them be 3 to 5 player games. But I understand that they want that 2-player label on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's so many couples or whatnot. But I hate looking at a game, seeing 2 to 4, knowing that you should never play that 2-player, or it's got some wonky rules.
On the flip side of that, you have Baseball Highlights 2045, first mention, which is a 2-player game that's listed as a 2 to 4 player game. Just throwing that out there. Just to shoehorn it in.
Kind
of like Star Wars Rebellion, which is could be a 2 to 38 player game.
Right.
You want to split it, everybody on team.
You appoint specific people as planetary governors.
I call Grand Moff Tarkin in that game. I'm all about Tarkin.
Are you?
No.
Okay.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, the last game I'm going to talk about is...
Troyes?
Well, it's
Troyes?
Troyes? Okay,
Troyes?
it's spelled Troyes.
I think
I've heard it pronounced as Troyes, but Troyes is like Trois. I don't know if this is like an alternate spelling or something, but I've also heard people from Europe pronounce it as like Troyes. So I don't know.
For our French listeners out there, which there are a couple.
We have several.
There are a few. Please let us know how to properly pronounce this game's name.
Yes. So this is a Z-Man game that came out in 2010, and apparently Z-Man's getting ready for, I think it's more than just a re-release. There might be some other stuff going on as far as another edition. So it's designed by Sébastien Dujardin, who did Deus, game that I really love. Xavier Georges, who did Carson City, and then Elaine Orban. And I think it's this, and there's another one in this series. I can't remember. Troyes and I can't remember. Anyway, so this was a really interesting game. It is not dice placement, but dice action selection. And last 5 rounds, and it plays up to 4 players. I played with 3. This was Matthew's copy. He's been dying to get this to the table, and I'm eager to play it again. Now, in these rounds, you're flipping over these 3 different cards that are these different available actions you're able to take. So the game starts with like these 3 base actions, or maybe it's less than that, and then extra actions. At the start of each round, there are these different events that are going to cause some problems for all the players unless various players spend some of their dice to go challenge them. And there are 3 different types of dice, different colors that you get for having control of these different buildings in the city. And so throughout the game, you could be placing some of your pieces out to get more of those dice for subsequent turns. And the dice are going to let you, based on what you roll, you're going to get certain activations of cards. So there might be a card that says, for every 3 pips, or every 3 points or whatever, you can take this action. So maybe it's requiring some combination of yellow dice. And let's say I'm able to take a 6 and a 3, so that's 3 different actions, and maybe it's going to give me some money in certain ways, or it's going to let me manipulate other dice or do some other things. And you're building a cathedral, you're doing all sorts of stuff. It was really interesting. There's a lot of built-in mitigation of the dice, because in some cases you really just want to roll high, but there are ways to kind of get around that. That's kind of problematic for me. Like in Castles of Burgundy, the dice don't have an inherent value. There's no inherent, a 6 isn't better than a 1. It just depends on what you're looking to get. This is not quite like that, because a lot of times higher value dice are better, like in, say, a game like Kingsport. But there's enough mitigation in here that I think it can kind of overcome some of that. But if you're on a hot streak, you're on a hot streak when it comes to rolling these dice. So it's an interesting game. I really enjoyed it. Again, I'm eager to play this again, because what's cool is, like I said, every round, or the first 3 rounds or so, you're flipping over these different actions. And I think in each color of action, there's a yellow, orange, and white action. I think there's like 6 or 7 available in a deck, but you're only seeing 3 per color per game. So a lot of different ways to kind of manipulate them. You're kind of seeing which combos you can use together. It was an interesting game. Kind of hard to explain, but again, I'm interested to try this again pretty soon.
My eyes glazed over looking at this.
Yeah, it's kind of a drab looking. It doesn't look great. It looks pretty bad, but the gameplay was pretty good. I'm eager to play this again.
It is your kind of game.
Yeah. So that's Troyes, or Troyes, or Troyes from Z-Man.
That's a look at what we played this week. Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, first up in news, Dominion 2nd Edition, coming out from Rio Grande Games. Sean, what is going to be different in this new edition?
All right, so it's the original base set and Intrigue, so you can, not together, but you can buy them separately. And apparently they're adding 7 new Kingdom cards to each. They're also cleaning up some of the templating and wording on some of the other cards, so it's supposed to be a little bit more of a smoother experience, I guess. I never really encountered much problems with the 2 base sets, Dominion and then Intrigue. What's nice is that for those of us that already have Dominion and Dominion Intrigue, we don't have to rebuy these, because there's going to be available upgrade packs. They're going to give you the new Kingdom cards for each. The only thing you don't get are cards with updated wording, but again, I didn't think that was something that was needed, or...
They're adding flavor text.
Yeah, I don't think so. So yeah, this kind of hit me. It came out of the blue in my mind. I didn't know that this was something that was necessary. And it seems like if you're going to have additional Kingdom cards, just put out another expansion. But I'm also kind of tired of Dominion expansions.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, and for me, there's just so many other deck builders or games with deck building elements that I would play over this.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think one important thing about specifically the Dominion base, not necessarily Intrigue, is that, especially with the new Kingdom cards, I always found the base game of Dominion, frustrating for my friends, because I think most, pretty strong Dominion players will agree that the best strategy in the base Dominion game is to just buy gold and a few cards that, militia and the things. And it wasn't the deck building aspect of it, and all the fun, crazy things you can do in Dominion was not necessarily competitive like it was in many that the expansions changed about the game. So I think if they could make the base game a little more competitive with all the other, strategies of actually buying a bunch of cards, that it would be a better product.
Could be. So for me, Dominion is a game that I will very rarely think to bring out, even though I own all of the Dominions. But again, I'm not thinking to bring it out. However, if I show up somewhere and someone has it out ready to go, they're like, hey, you want to sit down for a couple hands of Dominion? I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. I played this game so much when it first came out. So much. And for me, it's still a fun, enjoyable game, but I just never think to want to play it. But again, I would never turn it down.
Well, this is one of this is obviously the first deck builder I ever played, but it's one of the first games in this hobby that I ever played. And so for that reason, it does definitely hold a place in my memory, but maybe not as much my heart.
Okay.
So it's just not, again, there's other things that I would rather play over that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And this is coming out, according to Rio Grande, very soon. Whatever that means.
All right, next up in news, we're talking about CGE's Essen releases. Sean, what are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at some pretty cool stuff. CGE, I think, is a company that we're pretty crazy about. Obviously, they make Zolkin, which is one of my favorite games. I just won a 4-player game of that online today, which is pretty sweet.
Good for you.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm just saying. Exactly.
It's not impressive at all. It's not even remotely impressive.
I think it's impressive. It's a hard game.
Who are you playing against?
It's a hard game.
Yeah, I know it's a hard game. That's why I don't play it.
I was playing against game designer Daniel Newman. I was playing against Netters, and I was playing against Matthew.
Yeah, okay.
And I won. Are you discounting
No,
all of
no,
those
but
people?
what's funny is on there's a Dukes chat we have, and there's three of us on the chat. It's myself, it's Sean, and it's Matthew. And Sean is like, well, you could do that, but it doesn't matter to me. And had like a moi, like it was almost like an evil kind of thing in there. Even though it wasn't, like I couldn't hear him saying this. I could hear him in my head saying this. And Sean was like, well, I did the math. It's not cocky if you did the math. So,
yeah, exactly.
You could be cocky and doing math at the same time, Sean.
Okay.
I already know your defeat is assured. I've done the math.
Let's talk about CGE's Essen releases. Well, first off, they have Codenames Pictures, which is already available here in the US, but this is going to be their European release. Codenames, smash hit of last year, and this is the picture version. I got to play this at Dice Tower Con. Did you play it there too?
I did.
And I know, Mike, you've played it as well.
Yep.
But you're not as crazy about Codenames in general.
Yeah, I like pictures better than the word one, but in general, I can pass on all of them.
and I'm the opposite. So I love Codenames, and I think I prefer word Codenames more than pictures Codenames.
I might slightly prefer pictures over words.
Okay, well, you're both dead to me. Anyway.
Okay.
So there's.
Hey, I like Seven Wonders Duel. So
yeah.
No.
Take that, Alex.
Get out. Well, as long as you're logging your plays, I don't care.
For the fantasy.
Because it's in my fantasy board game league team. Anyway.
So they've got another title coming out, Adrenaline, which I know there was a lot of anticipation for it over here in the US. And it's this futuristic arena battle game. What's kind of cool is that if you're getting beaten up on and as you're taking damage, your character gets faster, which is kind of an interesting trade-off. And it's it's boasting this kind of sleek, diceless combat system. So I'm excited to hear more about that. It sounds really cool. Also, Alchemist, which is a pretty heavy medium. I mean, Alex, you'd probably call it heavy.
One of the heaviest games I enjoy.
That you enjoy. That has that whole app component. There's a deduction element to it. So they're coming out with a new expansion. Well, the only expansion, King's Golem. Wait, I never can say Golem right because I always think of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Did I say it right? Golem.
I think so.
Golem.
Yes, you got it. Okay. You nailed it.
Perfect. So this has 4 new modules. It has the startup funding, which gives players a chance to customize the initial resources in their laboratories. That sounds all right. It has the Busy Days module, and this makes each round different by offering new rewards and costs in the order spaces. Okay. I mean, has kind of the same way that Viticulture does it, where you're bidding for turn order, and you get different bonuses based on your bid. So that could be interesting. There's the Royal Encyclopedia module, which is a new venue for publishing your research. That sounds interesting. That does intrigue me. And then the Golem, not Gollum project, where players will have the challenge of animating a creature made from magic and clay. That also sounds interesting. So 2 of the 4 modules sound interesting.
All right.
Mike, have you had a chance to play Alchemist?
I have not, no.
So Alex, I mean, we did our double take on this not too long ago.
Yes.
And I think it fell from a 5 to a 4 for me, or maybe it stayed at a 4. I
don't remember what I gave it.
Okay.
At all. Yeah, that sounds right for you.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I gave it. What I will say is there are some games that can really benefit from an expansion and add something new and a new twist.
Sure.
The reason this one's not getting off the shelf isn't because it doesn't have enough expansions or doesn't have enough of something new to make it fresh.
Yeah.
So to me, it's tricky because we haven't gotten it off the shelf in a while because the teach of it is so absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal teach. And because of that, adding additional complexity to the mix, while it may be interesting for folks who've really found a good group to play this with, and I'm sure there's a few out there, in general, it doesn't do much for me because we haven't played it that much. Even though I really like it thematically and I really enjoyed it when I did learn it and actually play it, I don't know how much that actually helps.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to at least try the expansion and see what it does for me. I like the Euro elements of it. I like the deduction elements of it a lot. I think that's the harder part. I think the Euro element is easier to teach, and it's the deduction that's a little bit harder. So the other thing that CG is doing at Essen is they're going to be showcasing some of their newness and apps. So they're going to have the new expansion for the Galaxy Trucker app, and you've played that a lot, right, Alex?
Yeah, quite a good app.
So you excited for the expansion?
Excellent app.
Yeah?
Yep. And sure, I actually lost all my progress and had to start all over again, and I've been a little bit slow in catching back up. So it's not like I've reached the point where I need an expansion, but yeah, I'm excited for an expansion for that because it's a fantastic app. Really funny app too.
And it sounds like you enjoy it too, Mike?
Yeah, great app. I love the addition of the turn-based play as well as the live play. I don't really prefer one or the other. The campaign's amazing. It's a game that tends to be hard to get to the table for me just because, it's just, there's so much going on in it. And being able to play it solo is awesome.
And then apparently they're also going to reveal their progress on their Codenames app, which, okay, that sounds interesting. But also their Through the Ages app, which I am super excited for. I love Through the Ages. I love playing it online. I love playing it in real life. I would love to be able to play against the AI in like 25, 30 minutes. That sounds amazing to me. Super excited for that. So that's all the offerings from CGE at Essen. So if you're going to Essen and can pick up some of that stuff for us.
Right. All right. Finally, we always look at a Kickstarter this week. This week we are looking at, oh my goodness, it's another Mars-themed game. This is Mars 445 from TGIK Games. Sean, what is going on in this one?
Okay, have either of you ever played the parlor game Nerds?
No.
No.
Okay. So I love Nerds. We played this in high school. We played this in college. It's this like speed solitaire team game.
I may have actually played this.
Oh.
Off of a description.
Okay.
Okay.
So so Mars 445 is kind of the gamer version of this. It's not a team game like Nerds is, but it is competitive speed solitaire. And for some people that might sound horrible. For me, someone that loved Nerds, I am super excited about this. I did back this because it sounds really, really interesting. Now, there is this theme of your like mission control with different rival rockets going to Mars, but you're playing the game so quickly it looks like that it's not really a thing. So in Mars 445, each player is a mission director racing to establish the first colony on the red planet. Mission directors will simultaneously compete to construct all the modules necessary to start a Mars settlement, sourcing as many parts internally as possible to maximize profitability. Mission directors will be moving supplies from their individual setup to the factory floor where modules started by one mission director can be built on and finished by other mission directors. So you have this kind of tableau in front of you that's your own personal tableau, and there's a solitaire style play to it where you're lining up cards. But then in the center of the table, there's a shared tableau where you're then able to move cards from your hand or move cards from your personal tableau. The idea being that you're trying to get the most of your cards out to the center, something like that. All of the decks that each player have are unique back, so at the end of a round, you're able to see who put the most out there. So I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I've played a lot of those kind of speed solitaire games. My wife loves them, so it's definitely something I'll look at because she's not much of a gamer, but something like this might pique her interest.
There is only room in my heart for 3 speed games.
Okay.
Captain Sonar.
Sure.
Happy Salmon. Sean, Happy Salmon.
There,
okay.
Yeah.
That worked out.
Okay.
And Pit Crew, a.k.a. Race Cadets.
Which is
from
released.
Jeff Engelstein, which doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
But will soon, hopefully in some form or fashion, because it's freaking cool. Anyway, to answer your question, sure, if you pick it up, I'll play it.
Okay, so this plays 2 to 4 players, and in about 20 to 30 minutes, it says. Now, it can actually play more, because you just need different unique decks to be able to add more players to this. So if you want to get this here in the US, it's $20 plus $5 shipping. Like I said, I've already backed this. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times when we talk about Kickstarters, they've already been funded, and we're just trying to add on some stretch goals. Right now, this is ending on October 14th, so about a week and a half after this episode drops, maybe a little bit more. It is at $4,300 of its $7,000 goal. So go take a look at this. Check it out. Again, I would like to see this happen. I had a lot of fond memories playing Nerds, and this looks like fun. The art is done by our buddy Jason Washburn. He's at Talon Strikes, and it's this really cool retro art style. I think it looks fantastic. I'm very excited for it. I would love to see this project happen. So go check it out. That is Mars 445.
And that is a look at the news.
So I want to take a few minutes to talk about a brand new insert from our friends over at Meeple Realty. Wait, who are you?
Hi, I'm Mariah.
How'd you get down here?
I don't know. I just showed up here.
Hey, do you like any word-based board games?
Yeah, I like Codenames.
Oh, have you played Codenames Pictures?
Yes, I have.
Ooh, have you played Codenames Undercover? Don't answer that. You're not allowed to, Mariah. You're too young, okay? Deal with it.
Okay.
So anyway, our buddies over at Meeple Realty have a brand new insert for Codenames. But not only does it support Codenames, it supports Codenames Pictures, Codenames Undercover, and it holds all three of them in one of those boxes. So go check out the Spy headquarters. In fact, I'm holding it in my hand.
I think it looks really, really cool and space efficient.
Yes. Check out MeepleRealty.com to see all of their other high-quality, innovative inserts engineered to improve your play experience and speed up setup and breakdown of some of your favorite games.
Meeple Realty, think inside the box. All right, this week, no featured review for you guys, but because we have someone who's a vacation aficionado, we're talking about the top 6 travel games. All right, so our top 6 travel games. And obviously when we're thinking about this, and as I was thinking about this one, Sean, a lot of card games came to mind, which I think makes a ton of sense.
Well, kind of. So at a certain point, I'm like, well, wait, am I just listing my top 6 small box games? So I was thinking about that a little bit. I was also thinking about purposes of travel. Am I traveling for work? Am I traveling to go to a con or to, say, a gaming vacation? Am I traveling with the family? Am I traveling alone? Am I traveling to meet people? Like, for example, I have brought my custom diplomacy to San Diego with me, which is like a giant, like 4x6 board.
Just because you have traveled with it doesn't mean it's a travel game.
I understand. And so that was kind of my thinking is like, well, is it just a small box? Is how much real estate it takes up important? Is whether or not you can play it on the tray of an airplane important? Do you need to consider, are you going to have players where you're going? Are you going to be meeting up with people, or maybe you're going to be in a hotel bar and you want something that's accessible to just people that come by? I don't know. So that's kind of the thoughts that went in my head. What about you guys?
I was very similar in that I thought about, because I travel for many different reasons, both for my board game business, my 9-to-5, with my family. So I tried to pick one game for each of the ways that I kind of travel. Yeah.
I tended to think for this one, generally speaking, something that is a small box, can fit in a bag really well, and something that tends to take up less table real estate. Not no table real estate, but less. Does it have to be an airplane tray table? Not necessarily. But those were sort of the factors I used when I was considering this list. And by the way, it is, yet again, a list of 6, not an actual top 6. These are in the order I thought about them, not in any actual ranked order. So, there you go.
Why don't we just say they're ranked? They're just ranked.
No, they're not ranked.
I have ranked them.
No, you can't tell me. Okay, you can rank them.
Number 6.
Alex, you're number 6.
My number 6 on my list of 6, in other words, the first game I thought of, is Love Letter. And this strikes me as in many ways, could be the quintessential travel game, just because, again, it fits.
So you're number 1?
It's not my number 1. It's just the first one I thought of.
Okay.
It's a list of 6, Sean.
Yeah, but this is the quintessential.
Don't think about it too much.
Okay.
All right. So Love Letter is obviously, for folks who know, fits in that nice little pouch, original Love Letter, in that nice red pouch. It's not component heavy. You can track it mentally in terms of the score. The little cubes there are really only for determining who's won each round of the game. It takes up very little table real estate other than the cards you've played down. You only have 2-card hands, so it's not that it's hard to manage when you're kind of playing through the game. I think it would work well in any number of travel situations. Fits into a small space. And we saw this suggested on the Guild as well, and I think it's no surprise. I think this is an ideal travel game in many ways. It plays a good number of people too.
So it's 16 cards, or I guess 20 with the player aids. I think it's 13 cubes and the pouch and the rule book. So yeah, not a whole lot there. So I thought about putting it on my list. I think it's something that I would probably pull out in a situation where I am playing at the airport, or I am playing on a tray table. That's not a bad. I think it's a decent number 1 game for you.
Thanks for your vote of confidence, Sean. All right, that's my number 6 on my list of 6. Not my number 1, Love Letter.
Except it's quintessential. But anyway,
my number 6 is Timeline or Cardline. Yeah, I like it because you can play it with any age, any size group. It's obviously super small. You can fit it, if you took it out of the tin, into a little Ziploc bag. And I think probably the card line, the animals one, is the best, just because people don't get real defensive that they don't know when Napoleon lived, or that they don't know what happened in 1776 or something. There's no one I've ever brought Timeline out where they weren't like, oh, that was fun, or boy, I don't want to do that again. You just never hear it. So that's my number 6.
Do you mix your stuff together, or do you keep them in their own? Because there's different versions of the game, or do you keep them separate?
That would be outrageous. I think I would lose my mind if there were different colored cards.
Yeah.
I don't think I could handle that.
Good. I like that answer because that would drive me crazy too. All right. Well, my number 6 is a Realms game. Not Star Realms, but Cthulhu Realms. I like Star Realms well enough, but I think I'm going to be playing it on my iPad.
Right.
But Cthulhu Realms, I think, adds a little bit more in the base game than Star Realms in terms of some complexity. So it feels like there's just a little bit more meat to it. And it also plays, I think, 3 to 4 instead of just 2, like base Star Realms.
Devil's advocate.
Yes.
If it fits inside of an iPad, isn't it effectively taking up a lot less space? Because it's stored on your iPad.
Okay.
Which you're bringing along with a bunch of other games.
Right.
So doesn't it win the space battle by just a little bit?
Okay, we're talking actual physical games.
Oh, okay, excuse me, sorry.
Okay, good job. But I'm not limited just by space, though. That's the thing.
I understand.
I want a little bit more of a richer experience. I like the art in Cthulhu Realms more than the Star Realms art. It's kind of a goofy Cthulhu theme, not kind of your more serious, dreadful Cthulhu. And it's a little bit harder to teach than Star Realms. Some of the iconography is a little bit tricky, but I'm going to get a little more depth of play out of it. And it's pretty fun. I like it a lot.
I'm trying to recall, is there a Shoggoth in Cthulhu Realms?
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. Oh, were you expecting an impersonation there?
Nope.
No, I'm not going to do one.
Good.
Hello, friends, it's me, the Shoggoth again. Do my tentacles frighten you still? Are you going mad?
No, he's a friendly Shoggoth, though. So that's my number 6.
BFFs, best friends forever.
Cthulhu Realms.
Shoggoth lives.
Number 5.
All right, well, my number 5 is, this is kind of cheating. I'm cheating a little bit, but I think I can fit a couple different things into this category. Either Quicks or Quinto or Rolling Japan or Rolling America. So all of these games have a handful of different colored dice. They have these little score pads, and they have tough choices where you have to decide based on these die rolls where you're putting these different values on your score pads. I think Quinto is probably my favorite of all of them. Alex, have you played Quicks?
I have not played Quicks.
We'll play Quicks at Empire.
I've played Rolling America.
Quinto.
Quinto.
Yeah, Quinto is my favorite of all of them, but I'd be happy to play Quicks, be happy to play Rolling America. Apparently there's a deluxe version of Quicks at Target that Suzanne was telling me that has an expansion included. So I'm going to go check that out. So, I think this game's a lot of fun. This is definitely one that you could play, and it takes a small space. The only thing you need are pens or pencils. Although I know Suzanne's done this. You can laminate the sheets and throw some dry erase markers in there. You could certainly do that. But I think it's a great little. It's brain burnery. It's really solid. I really like these games. Quinto is not readily available here in the U.S. I really want to pick up a copy of it though. It's super good, but so are the others. So that's my number 5: Quicks, Quinto, and Rolling ...
America
or Japan.
Yeah.
Well, my number 5, by all measures, makes a terrible travel game in that it is a huge table hog, is extremely heavy, however, is one of the games that I have traveled with the most, without a doubt, because for my normal job, I do a lot of travel. I live here in Idaho, but I have a number of clients in New York that I have to go see maybe 3-4 times a year, and when I do that, I stay with my folks, and I'm there 4 or 5 nights. And there's a lot of downtime because they go to bed, and I'm still on West Coast time and stay up. And it's a game that I can play 2 or 3 times a night, 4 nights in a row, solo, and it's amazing. And I'm a super fan. There's no way to hide it, and that's Mage Knight, the board game. Horrifically heavy, fills up almost my entire roller bag when I take it with me, to the point that I bought an entire second copy of the game and have it at my folks' house, sleeved and everything. So I don't have to travel with it anymore. But it is the one game that I can play over and over, virtually always solo, in a solo setting, and it's fun, it's challenging. However, I hate that I like it so much because it is the one game that I love that I recommend almost no one get into or try or play, because the rulebook is so horrifically written and it is so difficult to learn the game properly that everyone is like, oh, what's your favorite game? And I say, well, Mage Knight's probably in the top 3, but you should never play it. But, I probably carried that thing across the country 10 or 12 times.
Wow. Have you played... go ahead.
Go ahead. I have not played the new Star Trek version. It is sitting over there, but it took me so long to learn Mage Knight, and they changed just enough in it that you kind of have to reread everything, that I just have not sunk the time into it to do it.
And probably carefully reread because you're
Right.
always going to kind of make assumptions. Oh, well, in Mage Knight, it's like this.
Exactly.
So I'm sure Star Trek Frontiers is the same. Yeah, no, you got to be careful with that.
All right, my number 5 on my list of 6 is Oh My Goods. And this is one that we've gotten into a lot more of late in the Duchy. Mainly because it's an Alexander Pfister game, and he is incredible as a designer. It seemed to, for whatever reason, just catch on like wildfire. Empire sold out of it fairly quickly. It's hit the table quite a bit.
Everyone at my table that I played with the last week or the week before bought the remaining copies off the shelf.
Yeah, not surprising. Now this one's on my list as well because I kept looking for it. I was scouring my collection. I know I own this game. I thought it was in my go bag to bring to Empire. It hasn't been. There have been situations where we wanted to play it, haven't played it because a copy wasn't there because it was already being played. I looked for it, and guess where I found it? It was in my backpack.
Oh.
Because I'd taken it to San Francisco, and I'd left it in the top pocket and hadn't properly unpacked. It travels really well. There's a ton of game in this box. It could be a little bit of a table hog at times. Like you could have a bit of a problem maybe playing this on an airplane tray table, but I think you might have a chance of doing it.
Ugh.
Yeah, I think it'd be tough. I still think because of its sheer size and the amount of game you get in it, I think it works very well as a travel game, especially because it can be on the shorter end when everyone knows what they're doing and you have the right player count. It can play pretty quickly while you're waiting for a plane. So I think this is a pretty good one as well. Quintessential as well, Sean. The other quintessential one of my 6 quintessential games.
Is it more or less quintessential than Love Letter?
It is equally quintessential.
Okay.
Because this is not a ranked list.
So are you saying it's equiquintessential? Yes.
Jeez, we both thought that at the same time.
Oh, man. All right.
Internet high five.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done. All right. That was my number 5. Oh, My Goods.
Number 4.
All right, my number 4, another card game, and yeah, there's a lot of them on here. This one is Sushi Go, and this kind of fits the bill of what you guys are talking about when you get somewhere, a game to play with folks. And I found that this one has been very popular wherever I've taken it. I've taken it to Michigan. I've taken it to California. I've taken it up to Santa Fe. Every crowd I've played with when it's a newer group of gamers has really enjoyed Sushi Go. I think there's something about the look of this that draws people in, the theme of it that draws people in. It works really well, and it's a great way of teaching people drafting. We've talked about this as a great building block, gateway kind of game. It travels fairly in a fairly small container. It's a little heavier because they use a tin container instead of, say, a cardboard. Doesn't bug me too much. It still fits pretty readily into any bag you'd probably want to bring. So Sushi Go would be one I would recommend in a lot of situations because when you get there and they're folks who aren't necessarily hardcore gamers, this is one I still think they're going to enjoy. So that's my number 4, Sushi Go.
My number 4 is Onitama, specifically in that I think it's a game you can bring somewhere and pull out, and you're not going to get kind of odd looks. As mainstream as our hobby is going, I recently went to like a picnic for my kids' school, and I knew there was going to be another gamer there, and everybody was kind of out in the park, and I brought Onitama, and it just really, kind of fit the setting, and yet it's such a great game, that anyone who likes those kind of chess hybrids is going to love. Very few people I've shown it to didn't like it in some way. Teaches super quick, has kind of an interesting little container to tote around. So Onitama.
Fantastic game. Absolutely. All right. Well, my number 4 is Oh My Goods. Oh My Goods again, also on my list. Alexander Pfister, genius. Already said a lot, Alex, so I'm not going to take too much time. I will say that it feels like it distills a lot of those Uwe games, a lot of like Ora Labora, Agricola, all of that kind of generate one type of good to turn into other types of goods, build a little engine. It's just such a great game. And like you said, it takes up maybe a little bit too much space for certain situations, but there's a tremendous amount of depth in that box. There is so much game in that box that I'm going to be able to take that on a vacation and I'm going to feel satisfied. Raquel's going to feel satisfied. So, oh my goods, my number 4.
Number 3.
All right, my number 3 is Biblios. This is a fantastic auction game. There's a bit of press your luck in this because what you're doing is you are, the first half of the game, you are drawing cards from a pile. You're trying to collect, there's some set collection because you're trying to collect the majority of a particular color that matches these corresponding dice. I think there's 4 or 5 colors of dice. And so in the first half, you draw a card, you look at it, and you're either going to keep it or give it to one of your opponents. But by the end of your round, you have to have done one of each. So you can't keep them all, and you can't give them all to someone. So maybe you see, a red 2, which is pretty good, but you're hoping for a higher value card for yourself, so you give it away. And then you see a blue 2, you're like, well, I'm really hoping for another card, so you give that away. And then your last card in this 3-player game is a 1 of some other color, and you're like, well, dang it. So really interesting press your luck mechanic there. And then at the second half of the game, you're able to kind of bid on some cards as they come up. And at the end of the game, you're flipping over all of the cards that you have to see who has a majority in each color to score those points. This is another game with tremendous weight, tremendous depth in such a small package that's easy to teach. And I think it takes up a pretty reasonable footprint now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe not a tray table, but certainly you could play this in an airport bar while you're waiting for a flight. You could play it on a table in the hotel room. I think I'd highly recommend Biblios as my number 3 game.
My number 3, I worked very hard. It wasn't much work, but I really wanted to fill out the occasionally part of your intro and wanted a role-playing game. And it didn't take me long after that to pick the travel role-playing game for it, and that is Dungeon World, which is such a gem in the role-playing world. It is played super quick. It's very much a storytelling exercise as much as a hack and slash game. Characters are made super quick, just a couple of checks on a sheet. You almost don't even need a character sheet. One person could easily hold them all. And what I think I like about this as a travel game is it's probably the only game I can think of that you could pretty much safely play while driving a car with like 3 other people in the car, as long as the driver had someone to roll the dice, but there's not a whole heck of a lot of dice rolling in the game. It's kind of this fast, gritty role-playing game, and I think the most unique thing about it is that there is no initiative system whatsoever, and then monsters never really take an action. So you literally just say what you're going to do, there's a roll, and if you want to do something again after it, you just do something again, and it's kind of the GM's job to kind of keep the action even between the players, and the resolution of all of your actions involves what the monsters do. Super easy to do, also kind of a one-off scenario. So if you're in like a 4-hour drive with your 3 gaming buddies going to Gen Con or wherever, you could easily do a little 3-hour Dungeon World play. Just such a neat role-playing game that is so suited to that travel atmosphere of a limited amount of time, kind of non-repetitive, not week after week, and rules light, but super fun.
Well, thanks, Mike, for fulfilling our occasional RPG element of our tagline there.
It's our most frequent complaint, actually.
Is it?
No.
Okay.
Well, my background, when I was a young warthog, was definitely coming up in the RPG side of the hobby. And really, when I no longer had the time or the group, really, to role play, did I switch over to board games. So
I'm itching for some RPGs, Alex.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I like it, too.
All right.
My number 3 on my list of 6, is Bottom of the 9th. This is one I'd gotten fairly recently. Picked it up at the virtual flea market at Dice Tower Con. Got in a few plays of it, and this kind of distills that baseball experience down into something that you can carry with you pretty easily. Very small box game. Includes the dice, though. It would take up too much table space for your typical tray table. We've kind of talked about this before. But again, easy to travel with and plays quick enough with enough gameplay there. A lot of fun. You're kind of in a showdown. One person is playing as the pitching team. One person is playing as the batting team. If the batting team scores a single run, they win. If the pitching team gets 3 outs, they win. I recommend this one in general. It's a very different feel from Baseball Highlights 2045.
So I got to take issue with you here, Alex.
Uh-oh.
You're not playing Baseball Highlights 2045? You're not taking that with you?
Well,
let me ask you this. What would you need to go without for room in your suitcase to fit this in? You can't turn your underwear inside out a couple days and have a couple less garments?
What is it? It was from that movie. Inside Out.
That one movie?
Forward and backwards.
Yeah.
No, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
With
Yep.
Big Hero 7 or something Hero 7? Something close to that. I'm close to the name.
Okay.
Anyway, look it up.
I'm just saying you should do some sacrifice for your favorite game.
Look, I understand that, but we're talking specifically travel games. So
all right.
I got to go with the one that's easier to travel with, especially with the big box that our good friend Berkey made me and gave to me over at Dice Tower Con that stores all of the stuff but is a lot bigger. I barely squeezed that one into my rollerboard to get it back here. I'm glad I have it because it's really, really cool, but I barely squeezed it in. So that's bottom of the ninth, my number 3 on my list of 6 travel games.
Number 2.
All right, my number 2. Hey, this one got mentioned before, but I'm going to be more specific with my choices, Sean. Take that. It's Quinto. Quinto is fantastic. Played this one at Dice Tower Con. Suzanne had her copy and laminated score sheets, which I think if I were to ever find a copy of this game and get it, which I'd like to, is worth doing. You have a lot more interesting decisions in my mind in Quinto versus something like, say, Road in America, even though that's more fun to say. I enjoy Quinto as a game a lot better. Quinto, with the dice decisions, you have to decide how many dice you're rolling. You have decisions about where to place that number ultimately. I had a ton of fun with this one. I think it's perfect as a travel game. Not many components. You could absolutely play this one on tray table. Sean said a lot about this one already. I think it's worth checking out if you haven't already. That's Quinto.
All right. Well, my number 2 is Seven Wonders Duel.
Woo, take that, Alex.
Yeah, nice, good strategic game, right, Sean?
Absolutely.
Seven Wonders Duel for me is if I'm going to go and I've got limited space, but I want a real game, that's going to give me the same feel as, one of the 12-inch by 12-inch boxes. I don't think Seven Wonders Duel loses anything just because it's a tiny couple of little decks of cards and a little board. Fantastic game. Every time I play it's a little different. I haven't played it that much, so I haven't played it to death, but love it. I'm super excited about the expansion coming out for it.
Yeah, Pantheon.
Yeah, I think the only reason I've got a game higher than this is because of how unique and specifically travel was in mind when they made it. But my number 2, Seven Wonders Duel.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 2, Motainai. My number 5 game of all time. My top game of last year. The Carl Chudik masterpiece where cards are used as actions, as resources. I can't say enough about this game. In fact, it was our double take last week, right? It's a Boxcars Award winner for the Dukes. And there is so much depth in this game for the 54 cards that you get with it. And I could play this game, I don't know, 10 times in a row?
A lot.
Could you play it 10 times in a row, Alex?
Absolutely. I think so.
Yeah.
Great game.
Yeah.
Very easy to play.
Absolutely. I think you could manage on a tray table. I think you could do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try at BGG Con. I'm going to bring it. Raquel and I are going to play on the tray table. I'm going to...
And you're going to lose a card somewhere on that plane and be very frustrated.
No, you know what? The current copy I have is beat to hell, so I need to buy a new one anyway. So
whenever I'm in the middle seat on a plane, I set up Mage Knight between all 3 the fold-down tables. And I just tell them that this will only take about 2 hours.
Yeah. And
can you hold the rules for me? Because I'm going to need to use these.
Can you move that piece over there, over here for me? I can't quite reach. Yeah, no, that's perfect. All right, so that's my number 2, Motainai.
Number 1.
All right, well, my number 1 game, because, I took the time to order these. Mike took the time to order his. That's fine. That's fine.
If you've listened to the podcast, this is not new for me.
Right. Anyway, so my number 1 is Agricola, wait for it, All Creatures Big and Small. This is a 2-player game that distills a lot of the worker placement, the resource management of Agricola into a tiny, I don't know, what is it, a 6x6 box. And it feels like you're playing a full, meaty, medium weight Euro game in this small package. It plays fairly quickly, But this is something that once I get to the hotel, Raquel and I, we would set up. It's not taking a whole lot of space, and we're going to get a nice, rich, deep experience out of this game that's going to give me that's going to scratch that Uwe itch for me. So I like that. And so I think that this is kind of as meaty and as heavy as it can get in such a small package. So that's Agricola, All Creatures, Big and Small.
So my number 1 is Less, which is a Kickstarter game that released 6-8 months ago, maybe longer than that. That is effectively Chinese checkers with some hobby game elements thrown in. I bought this originally, Kickstartered it because it came as a package of 6 that I thought would be great to give away as prizes at Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. But it turns out I kept bringing it when I would travel to see friends, and we would play it, and they liked it so much that I would just leave the copy with them. And it's, I don't know, maybe the size of 2 standard decks of cards. If you want to check it out, the website is www.lesstacgame.com, I think. And it's the board is made out of literally drink coasters, and there's extra ones so that you can put your drinks on them while you play. So it's designed to be played like in a bar, or anywhere you're really going to be traveling to. The rules are very simple, plays great, and the game was designed with travel in mind. And if you do get that package of 6, they have like a different artist that has done the backs, the coaster side of the coasters. So each one of the games has a different art palette, which it's just kind of cool. So my number 1 is Less, although it's funny that their tagline line is like chess but less, when really it's like checkers but less, but it obviously just didn't rhyme.
Like checkers but less-kers?
Yes.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, my number 1 game for travel is playing Hangman on an airplane napkin. That's Hangman on an airplane napkin. Components issues with this one because, again, it's a napkin and it's a pen. So it doesn't work as well as you might think in all situations.
I'm having flashbacks of your joking with Tom at the at the Dice Tower Con show.
Tell that story just because I want to relive it.
Do you?
So much.
Do you?
I don't know.
I wasn't going to retell it.
Okay, I'm going to retell it.
Okay.
So we were thinking of things to say while presenting our award. What category were we presenting?
We were doing 2-player games.
I don't know. It was something where baseball highlights was in it.
Oh, no. Oh, it was theming.
Best theming.
Yeah.
And baseball highlights was up. But we had this little banter section where we were up, hey, make a joke with Tom or don't or whatever else. And Tom's like, hey, how are you guys liking the con or whatever else? I was like, oh, it's great. It's funny. A lot of people have had these tough to pronounce names. Speaking of which, is it Vassal? And he looked at me, he's like, it's Vassal.
And crickets. There were crickets.
Yeah, crickets. I did a Patreon interview with him recently, and it didn't come up. I don't know if he just forgot that I did that, or
He probably forgot.
It's possible. You never know. But so that's how that one felt. All right. Well, someone at home maybe was laughing somewhere.
Hangman.
But no one here was. Yep. Hangman on an airplane napkin. That's right. Coming soon to board game stores near you.
So Alex, what is your quintessential?
Well, I already gave my quintessential travel game earlier in this list. 2 of them, in fact. Love Letter and Oh My Goods. Equally quintessential, which again was...
Quintessential.
Excellent. All right. The pick that I have to round out my list, though, is Tides of Time. And this is one that, again, small box, easy to travel around with. Not a ton of cards in this game, which is helpful, and doesn't take up a ton of table space. You can kind of stack cards for the most part on top of each other, spread them out, or splay them when you need to check them for scoring. It plays pretty quickly. You can have several games back-to-back of this and not get too sick of it. And again, it fits in a small box, fits in your bag pretty easily. So, Tides of Time.
Wait, remind me, have you played Tides of Madness?
I have played Tides of Madness.
And you're picking this over Tides of Madness?
I am picking this over Tides of Madness.
Okay.
Because I like it better than Tides of Madness.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
So, that is my last game on the list, and that is our look at the top 6 travel games.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double-Take.
All right, this week for our Dukes Double-Take, we're looking back to episode 60, the last one that we named on our own, Sean, before we got help from the Guild naming episodes.
I think it's an okay one.
This one was pretty good. So we were reviewing La Granja, And we were interviewing Stephen Bonacore this episode.
What timing?
Yes.
A year to the date.
I know,
almost.
and you'll see the Patreon episode pretty soon. This episode was episode 60, La Strongha.
Aha!
I get it. All right. So we were reviewing La Granja, and Sean, back in the day, a year ago, you gave this one a 6.
Yeah,
and
it's a 5 now. It's a 5.
Well, way to jump the gun.
I'm just going to jump in there.
You're just going to get ahead of
We
everything.
can move on now.
It probably should have been a 6. 5. It's an excellent game. So anyway, go on, Alex.
Santa Claus Sean just giving out 6s.
Yeah.
This was, I think, during an era where you were an era of the Dukes.
Okay.
A year ago.
Yeah, there were like 2, and you're like, you're just handing out 6s.
Yep. Well, you were.
Well,
and you did in this case.
The 2. Yeah, the 2 of them.
All right. I gave this one a 4, ultimately. I thought it was an interesting enough puzzle. I liked a lot of what was in here, but it wasn't something that was so overwhelming. I absolutely had to play this.
Yeah.
And Mike, you haven't played this one, right?
I have not, no.
So for the record, it's a 5 for me. It's a great game. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. I've played it a couple times since the review. For you, Alex, it's a 4. A good game, worth playing just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. Do you have interest to play it again?
Some interest.
Okay.
After hearing my thoughts and hearing the review and hearing how it sounded, I remembered the interesting puzzle. I remembered a lot of what was going on here. What's interesting about this one is we were talking about not too long ago, Burano.
Yes.
Which was a Frankenfeld of a different kind.
Yes.
That didn't really click for us and didn't really work. This one worked as a Frankenfeld.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. And for that reason, it's going to stay at a 4. I don't see any reason to bump it down. Maybe if I got another play of this it might change where I stand on it. I don't think it's going to be much higher than a 4, though.
Sure.
If I had to guess, it maybe has a chance of sliding to a 3. So take that with a grain of salt. It might be a low 4, I guess. But it's something I'd like to get to the table again. The trick for me is there are so many games of that kind of weight and that Feldian feel that I'd rather play over this.
Okay.
So it's kind of shuffled back in line a little.
And I think that's fair. I think for me, there was so much enthusiasm when we had the plays for the review, and there was so much stuff I liked about it, and it felt so familiar because it had all of those Feld elements to it, that it probably should have been a 5 at the time too, but I was just really excited about it. So it is, it's a very solid 5. I enjoy it quite a bit. I'm eager to get some more plays of it in. What's the Guild have to say?
Guild had a lot to say about this one. So Jake Bach from the Draft Mechanic podcast says, really want to play La Granja more, but for some reason it never comes out. We really enjoyed the few plays of it we had when we got it, but it's just been passed up for the next new exciting thing. It feels like the fate of a lot of above-average Euros these days.
Yeah.
And true that. It's just one of those that kind of got, for me, a little lost in the shuffle. Phil Hendrickson said, we picked up La Granja last year and enjoyed a few plays, but then it got lost in the shuffle with newer games. Just a couple weeks ago, we pulled it back out again and have enjoyed several recent plays. I think trying various strategies based upon different card uses is the key to enjoying this game multiple times.
So I have a theory. This was an Essen release the year prior. So it didn't come out at last Essen, it came out the Essen before, if I'm remembering this correctly. And then Steven from Stronghold brought it over to the US. So I'm wondering if there's something to the timing of when it gets brought over from a prior Essen release that kind of contributes to it getting lost in the shuffle. I don't know. I know that's definitely the case with a lot of games when it comes to nominating them for the Dice Tower Awards, is by the time they get here, we've moved on to other stuff.
Ziggy W says, I've played La Granja once. It was definitely a good game, but ultimately the theme was boring and the art was bland. There are many more games that are just as good, that are more immersive and pretty. Argent the Consortium is one such example. It's just as brain-burny, but prettier and with better bits, although when I play it, I have to shift my mind to think of Harry Potter because, bleh, manga. Not a manga fan, Ziggy. Don't bring that stuff around him, I guess. So, yeah, I could see that. It certainly wasn't the most thematic game. Obviously, the thing I enjoyed the most in that game was the donkey actions. It certainly felt like you were on a farm. It wasn't thematic, but it's not. I think for the weight of game, you can find other things that are more thematic Euros.
Sure.
And Chris Holmes says, I need to slow down and play this one with friends again. La Granja is right near the top. I like the mix of tricky mechanisms and donkeys. I haven't had time to play it in many, many months. More's the pity.
All right, let's have Megan bring it home.
Megan is a huge fan of this one. Woohoo! La Granja! I love this game so much. I'm a big fan of multi-use cards in general, and the way they're used in this game is wonderful. There are always interesting decisions to make with how you use your cards, how and when you draft the dice, and how and when you go for market stalls versus craft buildings. The game scales well, though I do quite enjoy it with 3, as the market setup is the tightest at this number. I also really appreciate how creatively you can play in the game thanks to the flexibility of things you can do on your turn. Short one resource? Buy it. When I teach the game, I often summarize that if there's a question as to whether or not you can do something, the answer is usually yes. Farming without the misery, 6 out of 6, currently number 3 in my top 10 games, 14 log plays, and ready for more.
I want to play it some more now.
Yeah, that's a good sales job there, Megan.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our Dukes Double-Take of La Granja. Stays at a 4 for Alex and falls from a 6 to a 5 for Sean.
All right, finally this week, we are talking about gaming vacations. And I think a good place to start off this conversation, Mike, how did you get the idea of doing something like, well, as it started, TetonCon, and now Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation? Where did that come from?
Sure. So that really came from me wanting to go to a convention. But at the time I had 4 or 5-year-olds. I lived in Idaho, and traveling and spending the amount of money that I was going to have to go to Gen Con or, one of the big cons for a week and the amount of time off just didn't make sense for me. It's tough to convince a wife, especially when you've got kids, that you were going to go away for a week. And I thought, my mind started racing and I started thinking, well, what if I could go to something that she would enjoy? I mean, she plays a little bit, but she would not enjoy Gen Con or even BGG Con or any of the other ones. And I got to thinking, well, what if it was at a place that people actually wanted to go to? And one of my favorite places in the world was Jackson, Wyoming. And I just started pricing it out, seeing what, it would cost to go. I was very intent. It's one of the kind of pillars of the business is that it will not cost more than a normal kind of vacation to the area. If not, I think, in some cases they cost less. I started putting it together. I was able to get a contract on the rooms and everything with 3 months before I had to put down my first deposit. I came up with a little Google website back in the day before, Weebly and Wix and all of these easy website editors. And 2 weeks later, I had some people registering and I was like, okay, I guess this is going to happen. I have to do this. There's people coming. And I quickly got the rest of my acts together. And TetonCon the first year happened. We had 40 guests fly into Jackson, Wyoming. Stayed at the Snow King Ranch. That's a nice area because it's outside Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Park. But after 3 years of that, when we really nailed it, I decided maybe we should look at other locations, specifically ones that would be easier to get to, cheaper to get to, and possibly give an overall better experience. Not that TetonCon was not fantastic, but it was, Jackson Hole, Wyoming is like traveling to the end of the earth. I mean, unless you're going to go to Nepal, it's about the hardest place in the U.S. and the most expensive to get to. And then it's a really pricey town because it's right outside the national parks. There's virtually nothing else there, so you kind of have to stay in Jackson. And so we did this kind of nationwide search. I priced out Disney World, the exact cruise that BGG at Sea is on, so I totally support the cruise that they chose because that is probably the best cruise down there to do a vacation with. I looked at an Alaskan cruise. I looked at the Olympic Mountains. And ultimately, when everything came together, easy to get to, great destination, a resort that I wanted to work with, Breckenridge, Colorado, which is really right in the heart of the Rockies. Not very close to the national park. It's about 3 hours from the national park. But, the Rockies are a lot different than the Tetons. I mean, they're this massive range, and not just, not being outside the park was just a decision we made for the ultimate benefit of it. And the resort is just fantastic. I mean, the prices we got for them to be able to do the trip at the price we can do it. The game space is just amazing, and they're just wonderful to work with. So we ended up switching over to Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation, which Alex, you came to, which is awesome. We also had Mike Fitzgerald and Dan King there last year. And we are getting ready for our 5th year coming up this June. We are already at registrations equal to past years, and we've done virtually no advertising. We've got room for probably about another 40 guests.
Wow.
But we expect to fill up. I don't think there's any real immediate rush but I suspect we'll be full before the end of the year, which is something that's never happened before.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I'm glad folks have kind of jumped on this and heard more about this because, as I talked about before, this was something that was a great blend of having those outdoor activities and being able to get outside and explore and get some fresh air and go rafting, whitewater, what was it, kayaking or...
Whitewater rafting.
It was rafting. Yeah. It was whitewater rafting for sure. And doing that with Dan King and having him pull me out of the water after jumping in. But that was a fantastic time. Just a really fantastic time.
Do you realize that if Dan King didn't work out so much, you'd be dead now?
That's not accurate. That's not an accurate statement. But it did help.
Are you saying he doesn't work out?
Oh, he definitely works out. No, it definitely helped him hauling me into the boat. But one of the better pictures from that entire trip.
Yeah,
for sure. But a lot of great memories and really a good community of people. You have a lot of like-minded folks who love the game, but also don't mind getting a little taste of the outdoors or going to do an escape room or grabbing dinner at the tavern in town. So it's a cool mix of things. And it works well because it serves a range of people. Sean, I'm expecting you can... Raquel's a gamer anyway. I mean, you brought her to cons and she does very well. Oh, yeah. But even Mariah, I think, would have a fantastic time at something like this.
Don't tell Mariah that because she's not going.
Oh! Well, I think it's a shame that Mariah's not going. No, I'm just kidding. I think that experience is something that folks don't always get or understand because the typical con experience, which is a very different experience and something I enjoy, is game all the time. Make sure you're eating. Make sure you're sleeping. This you don't have to really worry about. The timing of things ensures that you're going to be getting a lot of gaming in, but you're not necessarily going to be gaming yourself out and burning yourself out. You're not going to feel exhausted by the end of this. I certainly didn't. So
we've learned a ton over all these years that we've been doing it. And one thing that has always amazed me every year is the quality of the guests that we get. I mean, we really get an amazing group. I think some people are often turned off by cons because there's just so many people and they're not sure kind of the social dynamic of it unless they've been to many of them. And it's very different at one of our events. One of the things that some people have always asked me questions about or not kind of understood, but they get it once they attend, is that the guests share townhomes. So you get your own private bedroom. So if you come with your spouse or something, you get your own bedroom, you get your own bathroom, but you share the living space, the kitchen, which we stock with breakfast and lunch foods, with some other guests. And we work pretty hard to make sure you're with kind of other guests that are similar to you. So you immediately know someone and you probably know 10% of the people at the con. And really by the second night when, we expect to fill to about 80 or 100 guests this year, you learn people pretty quick. And we have some people that are fast friends that come every year to see each other, that go to Gen Con together now, that all met at the first year of Teton Con. Every year, this year we had a whole condo of vegetarians and vegans, and they were like the best friends. I mean, they were just raving about their experience together and the new people that they met. But yet there's enough time because it's a 6-night vacation. You arrive on Sunday and leave on Saturday, and that's to make it so that if you do want to drive and take an extra night driving, because Denver's a pretty easy place to drive for most of the country. I'm not the East Coast, but all of us Westerners, and you can do that. But when you get there, you don't feel like you need to cram in as many games as possible every night because you're going to have 6 of them and you can go out during the day and enjoy yourself.
So I'm pretty excited because our buddy Nick, who's another fellow Patreon Duke, he and his girlfriend, wife, I don't recall. Sorry, Nick. But I know he booked a spot for the two of them. And I know he's really excited, and it's going to be cool because, it's just going to be cool to have some other familiar faces there too, like you talked about. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm super stoked. I wish June were here sooner than it is.
But then you'd miss out on Christmas, Sean.
That's okay.
Or Feldmas, excuse me.
Yeah, Feldmas.
We did have some questions for you on the Guild, and these all actually came from the same person, Jesse Metcalf. Had a bunch of questions. So one of them is, I have a wife and 2 kids, preschool, middle age. While they play some games, they aren't big gamers. What do you guys do to accommodate the non-gamer families? Are there activities for kids, childcare, any of that? What I don't know. He mentioned he saw some of this stuff on the website, but wondered if you could go into some more detail.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we really pride ourselves on what we have for non-gamers. We have the add-on adventures, which is really just us coordinating with local providers of horseback riding, whitewater rafting, the summer fun park and stuff like that. So, it's very much like you're at a normal resort that is not gamer related at all in a great destination town. And then there just happens to be really great gaming that you can go when you want to. And very often there are a lot of spouses or kind of younger kids that fall into that category that aren't super excited. And we have, kind of a ticket to ride game every night. This year, we actually have a large number of families coming. We already have 2 booked, and I have a group of 13 that is talking to me right now that has 2 other families with it. And I'm not going to release any details yet because they are not solidified, but we are looking at effectively doing a kids program. And I have one of the staff members' wife runs an in-home daycare, not a daycare, a preschool. So she's licensed the whole bit. And nothing is official, but if we get 1 or 2 more families to sign up, we are going to kind of do a kids program this year. It will only be in the evenings. Because you're on vacation with your kids, go out and enjoy the area with your kids during the day. But kind of post dinner until bedtime, we're hoping to have something along those lines. But no one is allowed to hold me to that because we have not solidified all that.
So you heard that a babysitter for every kid at Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation this year came straight from his mouth. You heard it here. All right. We had, in fact, our first year we had folks that came from New Zealand to meet their friends who had never played, anything other than, Trouble Monopoly. The only game they played the whole time was Suro. They played it twice and they loved it. I mean, they just raved about the whole experience. So every year we get families that only one of them is a big player or along those lines. And they love it. We get great reviews from those families because, often dad is the one that's very happy with the gaming, but he has zero worry about whether his family's enjoying the couple hours that he's in the game room each evening. So I wouldn't put the tag of occasionally role-playing games for Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation because it seemed like there was a lot of role-playing in the mix here. Jesse's other question was simply put, what percentage of attendees at RMGV play role-playing games?
It's definitely lower than the board gaming, no doubt. But one of my very original staff members, Mike Thomas, good friend of mine, is the RPG coordinator, and it's his entire job to make sure that if people want to play, that he provides that, and then for those who are kind of like, I might think about it, that he has the option for some kind of one-off lighter games. This year we did Dungeon World. We do Dungeon World every year. And the intro game for Star Wars, which Alex played in, that guy can run anything. and he's really, really good, really,
did a great
really
job.
Talented.
Yeah.
Very good with rules, very good with new and experienced players. So, we get a different group every year. Some year we get 6 to 8 people that really want to role play, and we do back-to-back stuff. I think we did have a year where someone came wanting to do nothing but role play, and they had a great time. But I think if you're coming just for role play, now this year we are going to have probably twice the number of guests we've normally had, or maybe an increase of 50%. I'm not sure we're going to, it's not going to be role playing all day, every day, but if the need is there, we would probably run, 3 games over we typically run 2 big, nice, long events on Tuesday and Thursday. But if there was want there to play more, we would play more.
And the final question he had dealt with augmented reality games. Obviously, Pokemon Go was a thing this year. I haven't played it in a long while, Sean. Did you stop playing that?
Yeah, kind of. Raquel's still playing it.
Interesting.
But yeah, I kind of gave up on it.
Yeah, all right. But Jesse was curious if there's going to be events for that kind of a game and also for maybe video game events.
Yeah, so we've toyed with a lot of that stuff, and this year we are, amazingly enough, I somehow did not know it until we arrived, and some of the guests actually pointed out, there's an escape room in Breckenridge, a really nice one, and some of the guests did it and came back and gave me the thumbs up that it was worth including, and we are going to make that a pretty major part of this year. Just a major in that.
We destroyed that escape room. The group I was with destroyed it.
We're going to kind of make that a part of it, put it on the schedule, make it very easy to get people there, find a group. In terms of other kind of video augmented, reality games, it's certainly something that we would entertain. We tend to do a lot of the, with pitch car setup. It's certainly not a video game, but we do try and get into some kind of the other games. We have found over the past that we can't overly structure it too much. We've gone too much in both directions in the past of providing too many structured things and then not enough, because folks on vacation don't want to feel like they need to do something or be involved in something. So we try and make this good balance of providing enough but not too much.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So let me ask you this. What is the heaviest game that you recall seeing last year out on the table?
Last year? Mombasa.
Oh, okay.
Came out. I explained the rules to them, but I've never actually played it.
Alexander Pfister, fantastic game.
The one group brought it back to their condo, because you're allowed to, if you want to, take games out and go back to your townhome and play it. And they said that it was a 4-player cooperative game first, where you try and set up the board and learn it before it becomes against. And Eclipse gets played every year. Game of Thrones gets played every year. Twilight Imperium has never hit the table.
Interesting. So so that goes to my next question then. What do you think is the longest single session of something that's been played? Could it be Game of Thrones? Because that could be pretty long, especially the full 6 players.
Our first year, we had a 6-player game of Eclipse, like the very first night.
Oh, wow.
The very first full night, the Monday night. And that went, 6-8 hours easily. The Game of Thrones games they've actually finished up pretty quick. Most people who sign up for that at a con know it.
They know it. Okay.
So that hasn't really taken too long. It tends to be 2-3 hour games max, but we do on Wednesdays, we do kind of war game Wednesdays, which are really more like 4X games, where it starts at 10 a.m., so you don't feel like you have to get it in before 2 a.m. And Eclipse is when that comes out. Game of Thrones comes out.
Okay.
I think, we definitely see a lot of heavy games. I've got a ton of heavy games in the library. But people want to play a lot of games, so they do try and tend to stick to the kind of 2-hour games.
Okay. Now, so for this coming year, you have some special guests lined up?
Yes. So you from Dukes of Dice, and then we have Tony McCree from Rolling Dice and Taking Names. Who, by the way, we're doing a live hangout with him
after this episode drops.
Absolutely, no, before this episode.
Well, before this episode, yeah. Drops. So good luck with that.
Yeah, well, you can go back and watch it.
I was hoping to be on, but I will be traveling with probably a game with me. So.
Okay.
And then Mike Fitzgerald, who I just want to give a shout out to Mike. Mike has really been a huge influence on the trip the last few years. He got a hold of me kind of out of the blue with an email through the website saying, "Hey, I looked at this. I'm local to the area. Would you mind if I brought up some of my games? I've designed a few games." And, Mike's not the flashiest person involved in the industry, and I had no idea who he was until I started Googling him. And he very quickly kind of became a big helper for me getting in touch with folks. I got in touch with you guys through Mike.
Yeah.
And, through him, I've gotten in touch with a lot of industry folks that have rallied to the cause, largely because Mike says, hey, this is, since he came last year, he can say, look, this is something really neat that you need to get involved with. Because of him, we've got a big thing going on with Stronghold Games at BGGCon, which more details will be out soon. I got in touch with Dan King last year through Mike. Dan has been a huge help. He's done some great videos for me, has also put me in touch with Miniature Market, who we're doing promotions with. So Mike Fitzgerald. And then Mike Fitzgerald is working on another special guest that I definitely can't release names on that. If those few special guests fall through, I don't think we're actually going to have another one because I'm worried about rooms.
Yeah.
Every room I put a special guest and they often bring friends is one less room that I can put guests in. And it's not a greedy money thing by any means, because this is really not a, super profitable venture. I would hate to tell someone that they couldn't come,
Sure.
So
very good. Well, Mike, if folks are interested in checking this trip out and the limited space available, what's the best way for them to find it?
The website is IcarusTours.com, ICARUS Tours, TOURS.com. Also, Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation.com works. Hopefully, I've done my darndest that if you just Google Icarus Tours or Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation, it will come up. And everything's on the website. We have a promotion running for another month or two. Just mention that you heard us on Dukes of Dice, and it's $50 off per person, so it's $100 off for a couple. And there's just a promo space you can put in Dukes. That would help us all. So we found out where you guys are hearing about us.
By all means.
And then everything's on the website. Sometimes on a phone, the navigation stuff, but there is a pull down navigation menu to get you all over it. There is some details up still about the old Teton Con. That's really just so folks can see what that was all about, because the new vacation is very similar to it. But the website, for the most part, has been entirely converted over to Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. And I would really encourage people to look at the review video that Dan King did. He did a preview video, which was also excellent, but he hadn't actually been to the trip then. And then he attended the trip. I put no words in his mouth. I just told him, say whatever you want about the vacation. And he made an absolutely fantastic review video that really gives you a good idea about kind of what we do.
Very good. All right, that's our look at the Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation and gaming vacations in general. But before we go, of course, we have the naming runner-ups, the names that didn't quite win this week, but again, another tight week this week, Sean.
We had to Schwazi again.
We had to Schwazi yet again, but this time Steve O'Rourke was not involved, so Schwazi didn't necessarily go against him. The three that were under consideration were the one that we ended up going with. Donkey Mountain High won 2 Schwazis in a row, so it was clearly fate had decided.
Sure.
Sean, your favorite this week was from Todd Kauk, and it was Hasta la Siesta, baby, or
Yes.
if you do the impression properly, Hasta la Siesta, baby.
Well, so it's perfect because there are the siesta actions in La Granja, and it's hasta la vistas, but, basically see you later, like you're going on a trip.
It's a good name.
Sorry, Todd, I was fighting for you.
He was indeed fighting for you. We have to hear, by the way, Mike, your best Arnold impersonation.
Hasta la siesta, baby.
That was pretty good.
Nice.
That was pretty solid. Sean's not even competing because he already knows he lost on the poll, on the guild.
Hasta la siesta, baby. How was that?
I don't know who that was.
Was that perfect? Do I win?
It was something.
Do I win? What do I win?
Oh, boy. All right, and the favorite of Mike this week was Chris Schreiber's Juan der Lust.
Why was there a guttural
Juan?
Yeah, it doesn't
der
work that
Lust.
way.
That's not how you pronounce that name?
No, it's
There's
not.
a silent PH in it.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
what it is.
So like the concept of wanderlust, but spelled with, Juan, Juan,
Because La Granja.
is Spanish.
There you go.
Takes place on the island of Mallorca.
And that one also lost in a Schwazi, so Chris just missed out. Schwazi was not in your favor this week. All right, the name father and the name son both had pretty solid names. So name father came with Pack Up and Deliver instead of Pick Up and Deliver, the board game mechanic.
Yep.
Made perfect sense. And then the name son came with, instead of Far, Far Away, Farm, Farm Away.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Pretty solid. All right, Chris K., also in our top 6, Vaya con burro. So instead of Vaya con Dios, Vaya con burro, burro being the donkey. Nicely done.
Yep.
And Neil Hoffman with a nice reference to a game that's recently come out that I have not played.
Martin Wallace, Z-Man Games.
Yep.
No, Z-Man? No. We'll just say Martin Wallace.
Sure. Instead of hit Z road, hit C road. So works in the Spanish there as well, and the travel, and well done. Well done this week, Guild, as always. Schwazi, the ultimate decider when it comes to our episode names. So be nice to Schwazi, and Schwazi will be nice to you.
Is that a thing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I don't know how that works out.
All right. Very cool. And that'll just about do it for this episode.
Yes, indeed. So once again, Mike, we just want to thank you very much for being a supporter of the Dukes of Dice. We really appreciate it, and it was great having you on.
Thank you very much. It's been great being involved in the show, and thanks for all the support you guys have shown to Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation.
Well, you know, we don't support stuff unless we think there's tremendous value there, and it's something that we can get behind. I mean, Alex has the experience, and from what I've heard, I'm super excited, and so yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great partnership we got here.
Perfect.
All right, well, that's going to do it then for episode 112, Donkey Mountain High. So until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And
Mike.
And Hail Hydra.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on September 29th, 2016. Our theme music is provided by Carbo Hydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out dicetowernetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to dukesofdice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please also consider supporting us on Patreon. Thanks to Meeple Realty, who's provided promotional support for high-quality board game inserts. Check out meeplerealty.com. Meeple Realty, think inside the box. We'll see you back here next week. Until then, game on!
So, Mike, you mentioned a bunch of amazing Ameritrash Euro hybrids, but you didn't mention Kemet. Have you played Kemet?
Of course I have played Kemet.
Okay.
I like Cyclades better.
Oh, there's going to be a fight.
Okay,
it's
so
a touchy fight.
I don't dislike Kemet.
So
I think it's a great game, but I like Cyclades
so
better.
let's do this. Your one game that you can play, I will bring my painted copy of Kemet with me. My blinged out copy.
All right.
And we will
we'll
battle.
Do it.
We will battle.
I've only played Kemet once.
Oh.
That's one too many times for my taste.
Boo.
I wouldn't say that, but
well, for my taste. You can't talk about my taste. Come on.